Welcome to Go-to-Market Science, the podcast for CROs and revenue leaders scaling mature B2B companies. There's an art and there's a science to go-to-market, and we're obsessed with the science. In this podcast, we share tangible, actionable playbooks from the trenches, from what we're learning working as go-to-market strategy and RevOps consultants for our clients here at Union Square Consulting, and candid conversations with revenue leaders in the market that have been there. If this podcast delivers value, we'd love a 5-star rating and a follow. Now let's get into it.
Welcome back to CRO Stories. I'm your host, Rachel Buchert. With me today is Jessica Robertson, the Chief Revenue Officer of Orb and formerly the VP of Sales at Accessiby. Jessica, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Rachel. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So you're 11 months, or probably could be over a year into your first official role at Orb when this podcast episode comes out. What has been your biggest accomplishment so far in this first year?
Yeah, I think it's a hard thing to bundle down into one or two statements because it's been a crazy year. We are our second year in revenue, so early stage startup. And I think the biggest accomplishment, if I had to summarize it, would be opening really a new category, right? So we've been in this world of reach. How far can you get through one-to-one contact through, traditional sales manners, whether it's paid marketing or cold outreach, cold calls, cold emails, all of those things. And we are trying to establish, and not that we invented relationships, it's an old idea, but that relationships can really be a cornerstone or a foundation of your go-to-market practices. And there is, in fact, a tipping point for organizations where it is way more effective, way more efficient to go through people you already know to access your ICP accounts than it is to go in cold. So I think establishing that as a real channel and understanding what organizations need, how we can create a SaaS product to help them orchestrate and develop this as a true funnel is been really fun and a huge accomplishment this year.
Awesome. And can you explain to the listeners at home what Orb does?
Yes, sure. We are a relationship mapping platform. So we start, if you think 6 degrees of separation, we start on the innermost circle and we establish who does your company know. We do that through a number of different methods, but think about your investors, your advisors, your customers, champions, vendors, everybody you're talking about, or talk about the collective relationships of an organization. So we map all of those for you, and then we understand who do they know. And we think about that as network. So relationships in the innermost circle, network in the second circle. And we are identifying the relationships that you really care about and who they know and accounts you really care about. So if you think about ICP penetration, like you have this, let's take 1,000 organizations that you want to get into just for easy math. We're helping you understand where you have access points into that already. And then accounts who may come in through a different methodology where you have relationships or network that can affect your win rates. As we all know, multi-threading is really difficult. We all say we want to do it more. We don't often have a lot of answers as to how to do more. So we believe we're that answer. And this is really what we're talking about, is influencing those through the people you already know and who they know.
I love that so much. I think like real human relationships are going to become so much more important now that everything is just inundated with AI and everything feels like kind of like sterile and separated, especially on LinkedIn, which used to be, a platform for creating relationships.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, not anymore. It's all like
Yeah.
everybody's running towards AI, which we should be, right? There's a lot of efficiencies drawn from that. We're all trying to make our, our P&Ls look better. We're supposed to bringing in more revenue and doing it more efficiently than ever before. And AI is certainly a great tool for that, but it's taken a few people in its path, a few methodologies in its path, right? So much AI content is written now, AI emails, AI SDRs. They're all great things. I don't have hatred for any of those methods, and they work for some organizations, but we're kind of leaning against that at the moment. We're indexing that. Companies have worked so hard over the course of their, years in business to create these relationships, and we just want a way to amplify that, bring them to the surface, index them for where they can really be used.
Yeah, I love that. And it's like I can't remember who I was talking to another podcast, but something that stuck with me was like finding the thing that's unscalable in your business that high touch thing that makes you different from everybody else, and then try and scale that. And I think human relationships is a huge, what's the word? I can't think of it. Opportunity. There we go. A huge
Yeah,
opportunity there.
absolutely. It's been like historically, it's been really hard to map the relationships, right? Because you think CRM, it has the word relationship in it, but I have some arguments that it may not be the best place for indexing relationships as a whole. And that is because that one source of truth doesn't have everybody in it in the company, right? When you're thinking the collective relationships of your organization, your whole organization is not typically in Salesforce, HubSpot, whatever you're using in your CRM. So we are really working at making sure that that net falls and we're able to take all the data, which is a mountainous amount of data, working with it, making sure that we're organizing it in a way that's prioritized for the business.
Give us a brief background of your career journey so far and what led you to the CRO role. I'm all tongue tied today, and specifically Orb.
I think I am too. We're in the same boat. But listen, I came up the most normal way you could think of. I started as an SDR earlier in my career, spent some time in sales operations. So I understood kind of the inner workings, the plannings, the forecasting, all of that. And then just straight up through the normal route, AE, director of sales. So the most traditional path one could ever take. I don't have any like amazing stories that might shock you. Really, it just came from the most traditional path. But most recently, as you mentioned, I was a VP of sales at Accessiby. It was a completely different organization, very volume driven, very easy to manipulate the outcome based on numbers versus today we're much more of a mid-market slash enterprise sale. There's a whole lot more salesmanship that goes into what we're doing today than before. So I've kind of been all over the world or all over the board when it comes to, organizations that I've been in and run. And so the full gamut, but exposure to all of it. But it's been a really fun journey. And 15 years later, here we are.
Yeah. What prompted the decision for you to leave Accessiby, getting up to VP of sales to become a CRO?
Yeah, it's a good question. Accessiby was probably one of the more fun times in my life. We did a huge run. I was with them from just under 10 million to almost 50 million, like 500K short of 50 million when I left. So it was a big run, and I got the opportunity. I think the one thing that I can say is leading the sales organization, I saw the gap. Right, what we had done 5 years ago was not working anymore. It wasn't. I was telling somebody this morning, like it used to be a one-to-one relationship. Okay, you want this goal, let's back down capacity. Here is what I need, right? So you want $1 million in revenue. If your capacity is that one rep brings $1 million, I knew exactly how to map that out and to say, here's how we're going to meet our goals, right? So we would stand up outbound teams and we could really predict what they were going to do because outbound still worked. Like you send, 7 emails, you get a lead in, these sorts of things. There was all these ratios that you could work through. And what I saw is it didn't matter how many people we were throwing at the problem, right? It started to become this really inefficient, and we were on a downward trajectory for what our tactics were actually able to achieve, and we had to be really creative. So we were really creative, but I saw that gap in the market and I thought, what is everybody else going to do, right? Like all of these organizations who maybe don't operate as high a volume, so they couldn't see the numbers as clearly as I could. How are they going to create new business in a world where all of our old tricks don't work anymore? So when I was introduced to Orb, it was like, oh, that's how they're going to do it. Like it was like the answer to the problem in my job. So for sure, it was a risk. Took the risk. I was coming to an amazing team already in place that had the vision for what we were going to do with these relationships, how we were going to organize them, how we were going to help businesses find not only more ICP customers for them to go after, but execute on them in a more efficient way. So needless to say, I saw how it would work out and I wanted to be a part of it. So I jumped over and we did it.
Awesome. You're just seeing the future in this company. I love that. I love it. Like
That's right.
being able to really believe in a company that you're working for and what you're doing makes the whole difference.
Yeah, it does. It does. And For the first time in my career, I've always sold really random things all the way through and ran organizations for really random things, everything from tobacco to security cameras to fine art auction software, like really the most crazy random things. And for the first time in my career, I get to sell to myself. So every day I get to talk to CROs and to VPs of sales, and I get to hear how they're running their organizations. I get to hear their problems. I get to see what they're implementing as fixes. And it's really fun. I've been able to build an incredible network of these leaders that I both admire and learn from every day. And they get to be my customers. I get to be their provider, their solution provider, but also friends as it turns out, right? We're building these relationships with amazing people. So yeah, that's really been an amazing part of it all.
Yeah. I find people with the most chaotic, like, random backgrounds end up in, like, the best places or the best places for them. I
Yeah,
used to
who
be,
could have
I
ever
used to
dreamed?
Yeah, I used to be a salesperson, but, like, not online. I worked at a pawn shop once, and I was, like, working at an electronics store and stuff like that, and here I am
That's
now.
awesome. What was the
Yeah.
weirdest thing that you've got received at the pawn shop? I feel like
A
the
weirdest
viewers
thing at
need
the
to
pawn
know
shop.
this.
Oh, we got a lot of so I'm in Canada, like, so we don't have, like, guns. You can't, like, send a gun to a pawn shop, but we had a lot of swords, like, just a crazy amount of swords. There was one, I don't wanna get on too much of a tangent, but there was one aisle in the back warehouse that it was just the sword aisle, and, like, everything was haphazardly sticking out into the aisles. Whenever I had to
Oh,
go
no.
down there to get something, I felt like Tomb Raider, like Lara Croft Tomb Raider, like, having to duck around and stuff, and
Sounds like
yeah.
OSHA or whatever the Canadian equivalent of
Oh,
OSHA should pay
OSHA
that
yeah,
place a
OSHA,
visit.
yeah. Oh, yeah, no, it was horrible. I almost tripped and fell face first on an exposed hacksaw that was just laying on the ground.
Oh, no. Oh,
Yeah,
man,
but
tragic.
anyways. So, your first 90 days as a CRO at Orb, um, what was the first, like, major operational challenge you encountered that you weren't expecting?
It's interesting because I came from a late stage product market fit, scale up company, right? So I think while, everybody would tell you your ICP documentation is a living, breathing document that should never change and you should be iterating and editing on it every, 3 to 6 months. Um, I had kind of I had teams that were doing this and focused on these things, and I had fallen out of the practice of doing it myself, of really focusing on not just what you can sell, but what can you make successful. And I think that those things, like kind of the culture shock of going from a high transaction, we were doing 2,000 transactions a month at the time, like you click the CRO dashboard update and there's always something new to look at, to a startup where things are not moving. They're moving incredibly fast in some ways, right? On the product and on the sales side, but the numbers don't jump out at you as much. Going back to the basics of sales and remembering, like, okay, here's our customer. This is the living, breathing organization. We need to iterate on this. We need to develop not only our tactics from sales all the way to success, marketing, everything needs to be really organized and put into a document that we just rehearse and live and breathe over. So I think getting back into that motion of coming from a highly scaled organization back to zero was culture shock, but also refreshing, right? Because I'm one of those, I love to sell. I love my customers. I love to make them successful. I love to understand why they wanted to work with us to begin with. What are their big boulders? What are we solving for? And that was a lot of fun. So I think just that initial shock of getting back into it and going back to the basics was shocking, but also refreshing all at the same time.
Yeah. And what was your initial approach to that? What ended up working or maybe not working in the beginning?
Yeah, I mean, we've iterated like 5 times this year from a ICP perspective, like, and I believe that that's healthy. I wish I was doing it more in my more founded roles and things like that. But um, what worked was tracking success, not sales. right? Like looking at, okay, this person came, they were interested, the marketing worked, we got them into the funnel, we sold them, they were able to prioritize, but what could we make successful after that? I think that's the definition of getting to product market fit, right? And once you're in product market fit, keeping it is also a challenge, right? Making sure that you're scaling to the highest potential. So I think the things that worked was always indexing on the success side of things. The things that didn't work were, I mean, everybody knows this feeling of getting excited because you're selling and you're growing really fast. And if you let your attention fall for 1 minute off of success and just on what can sell, you end up in a little bit of a different place. So we always had to remind ourselves to get back to those success criterion and making sure we're developing not only the entire go to market process for the customer that will ultimately make most successful, but also, giving all of the teams that knowledge around us and updating our ICP and continuing from there.
And on the ICP front, who do you feel like was maybe who did you think was your ICP in the beginning and then you realized that it wasn't actually, the most ideal customer persona? And who do you feel now is your best customer persona and why?
It's a great question. So, honestly, when I came in, I was like, everybody needs this, right? Like, everybody's struggling with outbound. Everybody's, paid marketing is getting more expensive. Our CAC is going up. Our CAC to LTV is going. How are we going to solve this problem? So, my initial thought was, oh man, everybody who's doing what I'm doing. So, I thought it was just pretty generic B2B SaaS. Knew they needed a sales team of some sort. It couldn't be a solopreneur type of thing. And I knew we also had to have some sort of network density, right? So we're scaling and mapping relationships. So you can't have a company of two people and expect a lot of relationships because they just don't exist. And we're not a company that can fake it. We can't build the network for you. It kind of has to be there because we're indexing really high quality, high value relationships only in your ICP accounts. So the bigger the company, the bigger the customer pool that they have, the better off we are. So we started a little too low on that scale, to be honest. We needed to go after bigger companies because everybody was interested, and were lucky to have that problem. Can you imagine somebody complaining about a top of funnel problem, which is we had too many people interested that we weren't going to be able to serve in the best way possible. So we've since iterated. We're much more of a mid-market forward slash enterprise forward kind of sales outfit now, really going away from the startup world who is looking for a quick, flick of revenue versus people who have this, I call it the tipping point where you're actually more efficient using your relationships than you are doing cold activities.
I'd love to dig more into this relationship side of it. I think this would be super valuable for a lot of our listeners, just learning a little bit more about you, like learning a little bit more from you about how they can use relationships in their business and, what processes need to change in order to make an impact with that. So what kind of, how do your customers or your clients see success in using their relationship building operations?
Yeah, it's really fun and also a little bit complicated because relationships can literally affect every stage in the sales cycle. So let's go all the way to top of funnel. You have a list of ICP accounts you want to go after. And so historically, sales leaders have or marketing leaders even have just said, okay, let's go after them all. We're going to spray them all with as much information, as much marketing as we can possibly get. And we're going to hope that certain amount of people come in. This number is typically 5 to 7% is what we call actively in market for SaaS companies today, right? And within their ICP. So how we affect that is at the right size company, you might have 15 to 30% more access into that ICP than you think. It's different for every company. So kind of hard to quantitatively put a bet on it depending on, their customer density and things like that. And so the idea is you don't have to wait for somebody to be in market. You don't have to wait for go get them, go make them interested through your trusted network already, and it's you're borrowing somebody's social capital right there, so they already have it. You don't have to create it. There's a lot of trust. We've gone to this world of so much sales inundation that we really want to trust who we're hearing it from. We want to know we're not guinea pigs, these sorts of things. So that's kind of the first implication. When you think about kind of in funnel, in pipeline, like I said, multi-threading, we always say you need, to on average, you close when you have 6 or more people in this world of committee buying multi-threaded on any pipeline account. Okay, great. How do I do it? You want me to go back and do cold to all of these people, which we've just established doesn't really work? Or you want me to overextend my champion to make sure that we have all of these people? And the concept there is that we actually have a solution for that. We can get you more highly multi-threaded to those key people that you need within your pipeline deals to increase your win rate, right? So, and then we, think about warm intros on the top of funnel, customer references in the mid funnel, expansion opportunities later on. You can get the idea. Event planning is some of the creative ways we've seen it used to understand where your network density is as a company. So, how to plan your events across your territories appropriately based on where people are based. So, all sorts of different applications, all really fun. I think I'm probably putting people to sleep by now, though. So, I'll ease
No,
up on the application work.
I think it's really interesting, and I think, I don't think, this kind of work is really focused on that much, especially in B2B. I think a lot of, people who sell to B2B forget that they're not selling to a company, they're selling to an individual person at the end of the day, right? You're not, like, sitting on Zoom talking to a building, you're talking to another person. So, I think, like, knowing how to use, um, the relationships that you already have is super important and valuable. I wanted to ask, uh you talked about some applications for this, but what's like have you ever seen like a kind of a weird application that you never thought of using it in that way or building a relationship in that way?
I like I it's not that we didn't think of it. I just think it's difficult for most organizations to think this way, but a couple of our customers actually identify who has network density that they don't know yet or that they don't have a super strong relationship. So we always think about, oh, who can Rachel introduce me to? So we actually look at it the other way around as well. So you have a whole collective organization of people that you've had relationships with in the past, and maybe they're not fresh. Maybe you wouldn't go ask them for, that introduction or whatever application you're using, but to identify where your relationships with your first degree are not as strong, but they have really big network density on the other side. So kind of flipping the script and identifying like, hey, these people could be really important for my organization, but our relationship with them is not strong enough. So kind of flipping that back on the connector and saying, okay, that connector is really, really, really well connected within our organization. And this is what we need we need to renew that relationship with that connector. So it's like, how many times can you say relationship in one sentence? That's it. But
Yeah.
anyway, you get the point
Yeah,
there. So
this
really
podcast can be full of
identifying,
it, so
yeah, exactly. Really identifying those people who have critical relationships that you need to make closer to you.
okay, cool. And I read on your LinkedIn that you mentioned, you guys at Orb have been using your own products to, build the company, eating your own dog food, as, CEO Eddie would say. Um,
Maybe we should
I'm
change his
wondering
statement to drinking your own champagne. It's
drinking your own
more on that.
hey, I
It's
like
a little
that,
bit more
that's nice.
appetizing than dog food.
Yeah, I like that, yeah, drinking your own champagne. Very good. Alright, you heard it here first, folks. Um, so I wanted to ask, like, what specific strategies would you recommend or maybe ones that you guys have actually used to develop these relationships? Like, once you can see, like, "Oh, I should really get a relationship with this person." What do you do next? Like, what do you just, like, email them? Like, "Hey, do you wanna get on a Zoom call and just chat?" Like, what's the play there?
We legitimately use our own tool. So if I wanted to connect with Eddie, let's say from here, I haven't met Eddie yet. I have a profound respect for the work that he does. I read his newsletter every Saturday. Like I'm one of these fans. But now I know you, Rachel. And our tool would surface that you and Eddie know each other. Why? Because you have a career overlap or because you've interacted with each other on LinkedIn or have a strong social engagement. I should now use you to get that introduction to Eddie, right? So I am constantly mapping my network and how they can help me get to the people that I ultimately want to get to. I've found advisors this way. I've found all sorts of people, customers. We obviously, this is one of our biggest revenue generation tactics is drinking our own champagne, using our connectors to help us get in touch with other customers. We have a mission here at Orb to turn one customer into three. So to use every single one of our customers to get three more new customers, because that's the great thing about knowing CROs is they typically know a lot of other people in the sales and CS and marketing world. So yeah, this is what we're doing, and really just understanding who knows who. I think also people, like, just a little bit more personally, people are really want human connection. They don't want to be sold to. They want somebody who's in their shoes, who understands what they're going through, who can connect with them in a really real way. So not to not to put that aside, like just being normal and being a human being and not selling all the time, and really helps with making those relationships. And I've tried to personally spend this year investing in my own network and building um, offering people my time and being there for people when they need help, and, you know, really investing in it intentionally, because relationships isn't something that comes overnight. They're built over years and years and years, especially for, those of you out there listening who haven't intentionally done this. It'll pay itself back in dividends. It always does. Like, I'm seeing people, one of my customers today is somebody that I met 15 years ago through an intro. So it's like, all of these things just come back. So I've been more intentional this year, personally investing in my own network, and doing the same for Orb.
Quick pause. If you're getting value from this episode, I want to ask you a small favor. Take 30 seconds right now, open up the app you're listening to this on, and give us a 5-star rating. It sounds small, but it's the single biggest thing you can do to help us get conversations like this in front of more revenue leaders. While you're there, hit follow so you never miss an episode. Okay, let's get back into it.
So do you guys have any specific messaging strategies or guidelines on how to approach these conversations?
It's a good question. We call it burning the ask. So making sure your data is correct, right? Like, not going onto the far limb and saying, "Hey, do you know that person over there?" Instead saying, "Hey, I'm pretty sure you know this person. This is what I'm indexing off of." They're always impressed when you come with, not only, "I know you know this person, but here's how I know you know them." And then keeping it short and to the point, and also providing incentive where possible for people to make these introductions. Certainly, if you have a business benefit for doing so, that should be considered, but really keeping it short and sweet, taking all of the work off of the connector. They don't need to do any work. All they need to do is just place one simple message connecting. If Rachel, if you were introducing me to Eddie, I would want to take all the work. "Hey, Rachel, here's why I think you should introduce me to Eddie. Here's the benefit that I could bring to Eddie." And then connecting that, like, just allowing that message to be forward or whatever, making sure you get the ask right. The messaging is simple and the connector doesn't have to do a lot of work.
Awesome. Oh, and so you said before, you have one client that was a relationship or a person you've known for 15 years. Is that like 15 years of consistent following up with them, or like checking in with their life, or is it just somebody you
Oh,
met
no.
15 years ago?
Well, it wasn't like a by chance, like, it certainly wasn't
Yeah.
like a one-time meeting. We used to be in the same industry. We were introduced to each other, kind of fallen out of touch, and then randomly just picked back up and started chatting again. Again, like I say, it came from investing in my network. All, over this past year, reinvigorating all of those people that I've known over the years. And I put time out of my week. I prioritize it. It is something that needs to be prioritized. So, from a business perspective, you already have these relationships, right? Because the business itself inherently has invested in it through delivering your product or service. But personally, it does take time to invest in it. So, those of you who are, out there building your own networks, I would say prioritize it, put time into it. Businesses just need the technology to leverage it at the end of the day.
Awesome. And so I wanted to ask you a little bit as well about some of the go-to-market strategies that you've headed at Orb in the last year that you've seen the most impact from, whether they're, regarding relationships, the stuff that you guys are doing within your own platform, or something else.
Yeah, we actually have 4 or 5 go-to-market functions. I mean, we aren't immune, just like everybody else. We're trying everything. We're experimenting all the time. Of course, we drink our own champagne. I would say the vast majority of our revenue comes from that information. We also run a trade show or an events model, but we do it in a very different way. We are actually highly, highly, highly qualifying the people that we want to get in touch with at any specific event. We know a lot about them. We're pulling their relationship network maps before we go. We're going in with something to offer them. So highly personalized messaging at those larger events, a way to get attention from the people that we would otherwise not have the ability to catch via a cold call or cold email, something like that. We also ran a dinner series in the past year that was really, really successful. I was shocked at how it was difficult to get people to come to events. I think people are getting now, especially inundated with events. There's a lot of events out there these days, but it was really, really successful. People want to be, and we hosted all of ours as round tables or discussions, more or less, like that we want to bring people together who have something in common and solve problems together. So it was a lot less about Orb, but we did some fun things like telling each other kind of where their networks overlapped or where they could help each other with their own ICP introductions. So that was kind of fun. We also did some work with cold outbound. We did it in a little bit different way. It wasn't a spray and pray approach. It was, again, approaching people through social channels, mainly in cold calls. Um, like everybody else, it was a struggle to make that work and lots of testing with messaging and et cetera. But I think we're all over with the board, just like everybody else. We are trying to grow fast, having a lot of success, but still trying and testing all of the normal things out there.
Yeah. And why do you think your guys' events have been so successful where, people are being so inundated with invitations?
Um, I think it's because we centered it around relationships and investing in education and, solving real problems together. And we didn't do a pitch. We didn't structure it as like, hey, come to learn more about Orb. Instead, we showed them what Orb was like how powerful it was while we were there. So nobody came and got a sales pitch. Nobody was, required to take a 30-minute meeting afterwards. Really, a lot of people that came to those events became friends, even if they weren't customers. They've introduced me to other people because we really wanted to create a space for our community that was going to benefit them, not just in the way of benefiting us, right? Not just us providing our solution to them, but giving them a real space to connect with others that were really like-minded. We held really tight to a specific type of person. We didn't allow just everybody in. So we curated the list, even if it meant having a smaller event of, 10, 15 people, it was a highly curated list of people that actually wanted to be in the same room together.
Awesome. Yeah, I can imagine like having the company that you do all focused around centered around relationships and networking. It'd be probably easier than other companies to like create a networking event. What kind of advice would you give, companies who maybe don't have that kind of business model or product to sell that slots so easily into a networking event?
Specifically for events, I'll back out of that for a second and I'll speak more about go create the network. Go look at your network, map it, because anybody can. Just because our product is like, it's easy to like sell it without selling it. That's kind of the cheat code, the underlying cheat code. But I think it's all about list curation, building the network, being intentional, and then providing a really good space for people to come to. I actually looked at a lot and asked all of the people that showed up, why did you show up? And the reason was because we created a space where people wanted to be together. And that was the big thing, right? Is making a space where people want to be together. So this is why we were successful. I don't think it matters what your product is. I think it's about how intentional you are with the attendees and what they get from being there. People's time is their most valuable commodity. They're taking time out of their day away from their kids, away from their work, away from their normal, habits and behaviors to come spend time with you. So why? And I think once you get really intentional about that why, it'll be really easy to get people to come to your event.
Yeah, I love that. So how are you guys planning on fine-tuning and developing these strategies as you go into 2026? And what are you really excited about?
Yeah, it's funny. I put the challenge to my team, let's half our spending on everything and keep the same results. Like from a customer acquisition, because we paid our tuition now, right? We've learned kind of the way of work and how we're going to do it. And it's all about intentionality. Is that a word? I don't know. If not,
I
we're
think it
making it
is.
up
I'm
now.
pretty sure it is.
Okay. It's about being intentional, being prepared in every place that we show up. Why are we in that conversation? We know what our customers' needs, we know what their pain points are, and we know how we're going to solve them. And we're researching and we're restricting ourselves from the kind of, spreading the fertilizer to really watering the plants and saying like, here is how we help that company. Here is what we're going to prepare our messaging with our people with both prior to going in, and then we're going to show up really intentionally and convey that message. And I think I'm going to brag for just a minute. I think my team at Orb is probably one of the best. They are the most intentional about the things that they're doing while also not sacrificing volume and not sacrificing the things that we need as a company to survive, right? Like, I'm sure people are rolling their eyes on the other side of this. Well, that is nice, but I still have a goal that I need to meet. And these are this is the math that gets me to that goal. So there's always a line there. You have to weigh it between how do we be intentional and still get the results that we need. And this is where I think AI is super easy to dive into is those efficiency. How do you do those tedious, boring tasks a little bit easier than you did, before? So these are we're heavily leaning into that, and we're doing everything from like much heavier enrichments, working with a lot of tool providers to really enhance the people that we're focused on to make sure they're within our very narrow ICP constricted, you know, swim lane, if you will, all the way to the back end of let's invest in, what we look like when we go publicly. What are we going to take? And we're spending development hours to make sure that what we're showing the customer is the best thing that we can deliver.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a pretty big goal. Other
It's
than the
huge.
stuff yeah, other than the stuff you just listed, like, what are the other maybe, process or efficiency changes that you're planning to make to try and achieve that?
I think from a process perspective, we've been looking at a couple of different tools to really help narrow down our ICP bucket. I spoke briefly on this a little bit, but I'll go into the process a little bit more. So when we go to a trade show, we need to enrich everybody that's going to be there. We need to understand that that company is the exact company that we want to fall in love with. I tell my team, like, go fall in love with these accounts, know them inside and out. So how are we going to do that? This is where we're really diving into the process. We're going in to get better enrichment tools to make sure that the company is in our profile. Then we're doing some agentic workflows and making sure that we're hitting their website and understanding everything that there is to know about them, not just, your classic, where's the company address and are they in software sales and things like this. We're really diving one layer deeper, and we're using some tools and agentic workflows to help make that possible. All the way to kind of let's go into pipeline, really digesting all that we can and making sure to track every stage that we're in. Do we have everything that we need there? So we actually built a custom agent through who's now turned into a dear friend, but another company that develops custom agents for companies. And that agent is solely analyzing our pipeline and all of the calls that happen with a customer and how they benchmark against our company knowledge base and things like this. So we're diving into the nitty gritty of the sales process and understanding how we can be more efficient, how we can give our team what they need at the right time. When we don't have collateral and things that we need, that once it's pops up to a certain amount, that we are creating it, like everything involved in those workflows from knowing the customer to making sure we have everything when we need it, is under review for this year. So it's intense, but it's fun as well.
And that work is absolutely gonna pay off because even if it pays off by just a point of percentage, like, that could be hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars.
Exactly. Exactly. It's you never know what the effect, like it could be massive, right? And you're shooting, as you said, for those, percentage points that you can tack on to every conversion rate, to every win rate, to every single part of the sales process. And there's so many breakpoints, and it's our job as the CRO to solve those problems. So we better be studying.
It just reminds me of a piece of content Eddie put out recently called the ROI of go to market ops, because he gets those questions all the time on sales calls where they're like, okay, well, you want to do this, you want to help like change the process, but what's the ROI on that? And then he's just like, your processes are broken and you're asking me what the ROI is to fix it. It's like it's obvious. It should be obvious. Like just making a little some tweaks, like whatever investment you're putting into that work, like the man hours, budget, and stuff, it's going to pay off for itself many times over, because it's like a domino effect as well. It affects one thing, it affects your sales process. You're getting better customers into your pipeline. You're closing deals with customers that are going to get more out of your product, and it goes all the way to customer success. So now you have fewer tickets because your clients are like having a great time with your product, and you're getting better case study stories, and you're getting um, more retention and less churn. So yeah,
Yeah, all the way through. It's like
yeah,
it's funny because I was speaking with a head of an engineer, a CTO, recently, and he was like, "Jessica, I wish I could measure my team in the same way that sales teams and CS and marketing get to. We're so lucky, right, compared to other functional organizations within a company, because from literally the first marketing dollar spent to the lifetime of the customer, we have numbers, and we can fall back on those numbers to make sure that we're handling everything in the best way possible. It's no doubt a mission to keep all of those numbers in check all the time, but we're certainly the lucky ones as far as measuring our business goes.
yeah. You got to use it. I mean, I feel like it's not an exact science by any means, but I feel like every single department, even if they're kind of far away from revenue, if revenue is going up, then they're probably doing something right. Um, I know I
Yeah,
can't
the
speak to those other departments.
interdependence on other departments is a
Yeah.
podcast for a different day. Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
because there's, as you said, it's not an exact science, but
Mhm.
there is a lot of thought process around, okay, if sales isn't able to meet their goals, all of those numbers are suffering for one reason or another. What is the dependency that you have internally on other organizations? And it for sure exists. Like, are we not hiring the amount of people that we need to have the capacity that we need? That's an HR dependency. Do we not have, or do we have at all, a PLG motion? And how is that work? That's a product dependency or a engineering dependency. What's our tech debt in the CS department? And are we able to retain our customers due to performance? Like all of those interdependencies, a lot harder to measure. We have numbers on our side to say, what the end result is, but it can end up in a lot of finger pointing if you treat those conversations incorrectly. So
Yeah. So I wanted to change gears a little bit here. I saw online that in the last year, Orb brought on two advisors, Bridget Winston and Warren Zenna. And these are two very, very awesome people who I've had the pleasure of having some great conversations with in the past, right here on this podcast. So what kind of operational changes have they helped guide the company so far?
I'll take Warren first. Warren is he's like the Hall of Fame CRO coach, right? Like this is what he does for his day job at the CRO Collective. So I got so lucky with Warren. I actually met Warren at a CRO roundtable. And I literally, I mean, you're asking how early, I just went up to him and I was like, "Hey, I love you. Can you be my advisor?" Like in
Yeah.
a non-weird way. Like, but
Yeah.
and he agreed to do it. And he's a force. And he always forces me to think a little bit bigger than we are right now, right? Because it's not very common to have a CRO at this early stage of a company, but it is such an advantage if you can build the foundation in a way that is long lasting, right? Making marketing, sales, and CS all play together as a revenue engine, not as singular siloed machines that all produce different outcomes. So I think building the infrastructure from the very bottom, or from the very foundation of when I came in and built the first go to market team, has been invaluable. And kind of to your point before, I don't think we've seen all the ROI that will come in the future years of our collaboration with Warren. Also, he's the most incredible referral partner ever. So if any of you guys ever get introduced to me through Warren, take my call. But he is the absolute best. Just a treasure trove of information. And he's seen a lot of organizations win. He's seen a lot of organizations fail. And he really understands why, from the leadership perspective of the CRO, that's the case. Switching gears a little bit to our beauty queen, Bridget, like what can't she do? I really don't know. She is an absolute maniac of a brain to watch it function and to pitch ideas and to understand. She is like my use case for, if I'm selling to a CRO, she's the dream CRO to sell to. So I bounce literally every positioning and product market fit question around her. I watch how she builds and scales organizations. And she's really good at providing just straight up honest feedback. She doesn't cut many corners when it comes to telling you the truth. And she's absolutely incredible. I've been super blessed. And for those of you out there, I cold outreached her. So it's not dead. It's not completely dead, but she is incredible. And I can't say, I mean, thank you to my CEO enough that allows these people to come and advise us, because we don't all know everything. And I love having the opportunity for these people to be so invested in our company and want us to win and understand what we're doing and really like fall behind the narrative of what we're doing. And having them beside us is incredible.
That's awesome. My next question was like, what is the impact and like the value seen from having these guys on board? But I feel like you've answered that perfectly already.
Like immeasurable.
Yeah.
And there's so many, many more people that are not officially um, our advisors, but have advised me along the way, and like really everybody start building these pods of people who know your job, who know. I mean, I'm lucky because having a CRO as an advisor in our company makes a lot of sense. But maybe if that's not true, like build your network of people that are doing the same thing as you, and you can learn from them. Like um, we've done a lot of positioning changes, and both of those people and many, many more have been involved in those, advisory capacity and helping us make those shifts as we grow up. So, yeah, it's been a lot of fun and also very rewarding.
Yeah. I don't want to like pitch our services that much here, but like,
Do it.
and my
Why not?
for people who just listening on audio, my little hand is up. I'm like, yeah, we're advisors too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Jessica, as a first-time CRO, you're now responsible for the entire revenue engine, sales, marketing, CS. Tell us about a time where in your first year you had to navigate misalignment between departments or like a breakdown of that connective tissue.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm sure every person or sales background person is just giggling in the background saying, when wasn't there a misalignment between marketing, sales, and CS, right? Like these are just, it's crazy to think about, because almost every organization where I've come in a little bit later of stages has seen this, right? Like, I'm bringing you warm leads and you're not closing them. These leads are crap. Like that's the, he said, she said against between marketing and sales. Never more present than in some of my high volume jobs, right? Like these, it's really, really difficult when you're dealing with leads and sales at scale. Um, I would say the component between sales and CS is, what did sales sell? And that's not what we have. So how did this even get in our laps? It shouldn't have been sold. And I think one of the unique things as being an early stage CRO in charge of all three of those components is I really get to start building the foundation of, this is how we work together. Everybody's in charge of the leads. Everybody's in charge of making sure they close. Everybody's in charge of making sure that that customer is successful. It comes back to what we've talked about a lot in this podcast so far, which is ICP, 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 ICP. Do we have the right customer coming through all of those things? And then on the other side, what is our messaging and what are we selling? And can we make them successful with what we're selling? So those two things together, I actually think I've seen less of it in this job as I have ever before because we're building it from the foundation. And one person who has seen all of those, and not to say we're perfect, like for sure we've favored sales and that has hurt us in success some this year because we needed to show momentum and we needed to grow fast. But I think we're seeing a lot less of it. And I've pulled my hair out at certain points in my career dealing with those friction points before. And I think, Warren Zena previously spoke about, he's one of the biggest proponents of this ever, this kind of culmination of those three positions being head by one person. I think we're starting to see the benefits of structuring things that way, right? And it's not in every company that this is possible because of various things, but one we're trying to make possible here at Orb. But I would say the dissonance between sales and success is probably the most brutal one to face just because you're dealing with a third party involved, right? That you have to make that person successful and you have to make sure you're delivering the right product for what has been sold. So that that's my take on it. Like, I think it exists everywhere. We're certainly not perfect, but we're trying to build that foundation really firmly.
Awesome. Well, we're coming up on time here, Jessica. This has been amazing, and thank you so much. I feel like I learned a
Sure.
lot. Some stuff that we'll probably take
Thanks for
into
having
our
me.
business as well. Awesome. Well,
Thank you for having
I
me. I really appreciate it.
yeah. All right, and thank you everyone at home for listening.
Yeah. Thank you guys. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening to the episode. If this resonated, please give us a 5-star rating and a follow. It helps us reach more people, and you get our latest and greatest content without having to search for it. And if you're looking for hands-on help in go-to-market strategy and/or RevOps, please reach out to us. We help our clients with everything from annual planning to improving processes in go-to-market, implementing systems to support those processes, and go-to-market AI. We're always happy to offer a free consultation to help you identify the best opportunities to improve your go-to-market engine with or without our help. You can find us at unionsquareconsulting.com, and the info will be in our show notes.